How's it going, everybody? My name's Dave Whipple and you're watching Bush Radical. Today we're going to build a super simple solar power system for your off-grid cabin. We're going to use a car battery, a 100-watt solar panel, a Harbor Freight charge controller, and about a half an hour of our time. Let me run into the shed real quick and grab our solar panel. This panel is made by a company called Renogy, and it'll set you back about 110 bucks. As for the battery, well, we've got vehicles all over, so we'll just borrow a battery from one we're not using at the moment. Now, the beautiful thing about this is not only do you have a battery that you can use out of a vehicle you're not using, but it's also going to keep that battery healthy by charging it constantly. And the battery's going to last longer by being charged and not just sitting in an unused vehicle. Now, the battery that's in this 78 Ford van, it just happens to be a marine deep cycle battery. So it's a battery that's probably better suited for solar applications anyway. Just give me a second to get her out of here and we'll move on. Now, we're going to need a set of battery clamps to clamp our wires to the battery itself. Luckily, I have this Stanley charge thing I found at the dump. It's got 2 wire clamps on it, so I mean it's going to be just what I need. A little bit of delicate precision electrical work here, and we'll have these cables adapted to the need that we're going to put them to. Just like that. Ta-da. One other thing that we're going to need is a whole bunch of, let's say, 14 gauge wire. Just something to hook one part up to the next part. I'm going to use this chunk of old extension cord as my source for wire. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to take about, 15 feet of it, and I'm going to cut the casing off of the extension cord wire. And there'll be 3 wires inside them. There'll be a black wire, a white wire, and a green wire. And, they're all going to be the same exact gauge, so they're going to work out just fine for what we're using. All they're going to be doing is the functioning as hookup wire. So once I get the casing pulled off of these 3 wires, I can just wind them up, set them aside. Now, the concept is really simple at this point. We're going to have a solar panel. From the solar panel, we're going to have a charge controller. This is the charge controller that I'm using. It comes from Harbor Freight. It's like a $20 product. Basically, all this does is it keeps the solar panel from just cooking the battery. Once the battery reaches a certain spot, this charge controller will just shut off the charge. It'll break the connection. The panel will no longer be charging the battery. This is what we're going to use for our outlet. Basically, what this is a dual power point connector. Just like you'd see in your car for charging your cell phone or your laptop or what have you. I'm going to put one of these in the house. Basically, you have 2 power point kind of cigarette lighter type plugs. So if we have a power point type plug inside the house, how do we use that in the house to do house type of stuff? Well, of course, for a cell phone charger, just like out of your car, you can plug a cell phone, a dual USB adapter into it. That way you can charge your cell phones inside the house without the generator running. Also, now this is a cheap 200-watt inverter that I usually have in my car. This will run a laptop just fine. Basically, what an inverter like this is doing, it just converts 12-volt DC, which is what you're getting off the battery, into 120-volt AC like you'd get out of your wall. Now, there is a bit of a loss making that conversion from one type of power to another type of power. But if I wanted to plug my laptop straight into this, it would power it just fine. Anything that's 200 watts or less, that's just a household appliance, you can plug it right into one of these sockets. You could plug a lamp into one of these sockets and run it off a car battery, because this little box is making the conversion from DC to AC and from 12 volt to 120 volt. Well, let's get right to it. First things first, we need to put our solar panel on the side of the house that's going to get the most sun, and I think this corner is probably going to be the sunniest. The solar panel has MC4 solar type connectors, so I'm going to use this pigtail adapter. I'm going to cut off the MC4 connectors from this little adapter. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to wire them to my battery and to my charge controller so I don't have to mar the solar panel in any way. I'm just taking the last probably inch of insulation off with the blade of a sharp utility knife and getting these all prepped and ready to hardwire in to my system. From here, I'm going to need to get some wire ready. So I'm just going to take the two colors that I'm using, the black and the white, and I'm going to pull the green off of the other two wires, and it'll just all come off in a big rat's nest. That leaves me a black and a white wire, which is all I need. Two different colored wires so I can make the connections that need to be made and not be confused as to where I'm hooking what up to what. Once again, I'm going to strip off about 1 inch of insulation on each one of these wires and get it all prepped and ready. Now this is a very, very technical operation here. This is what's called twisting two wires together. Don't try this at home. Here's the charge controller. This is a $19 unit that I bought at Harbor Freight. Excuse me, it might be $21. It's got a little picture in the corner. Basically shows you how to hook it up. If you can look very close here, you see there's a solar, a load, and a battery set of wires. One goes to your outlet, one goes to your battery, one goes to your solar panel. Very, very simple. The problem with this is it does have connectors that I don't have other connectors for, so I'm just going to cut those ends off, prep all my wires, and hardwire everything together. And there's my charge controller, pretty much all set up and ready to go. I'm ready to hardwire all my lines into it right now. But first, these MC4 connectors, I want to make sure that they're all ready to go too. I've got one more of those to do, so let me get that one taken care of. See that delicate job of twisting two wires together? Very important. Now, of course, you could solder these together if you want a really good connection, and you could use a heat shrink tubing to totally seal that connection and keep any of the weather out of it. But I'm just not that guy, so I'm going to use black tape. That works perfect. Now, once I get done with these two MC4 connectors being all ready to go, I can clip them into my panel, because the panel has the other side of each one of these connectors already in it, and it's ready to go. Now I've got my clips, and I can clip them into the solar panel, and then I just have bare wire leads going out that I can hardwire wherever they need to go. Here's a real good close-up look at those MC4 connectors. Notice they actually have positive on the one connector and they have negative on the other connector. That really helps you to make all your connections right. You don't have to guess, because they're both black and the wires that go to the panel are black.
One thing I really want here is I want enough of this wire that I can move this panel around to kind of follow the sun. This cabin's kind of facing west, southwest, so the sun comes across the kitty corner. On this side of the cabin it'll be fine half of the day, but it would be much better to rotate it to catch the sky that way anytime after about 2 or 3 in the afternoon. So I'm going to put it right here in the corner of the cabin, and I'm going to leave enough wire so that I can manipulate that solar panel to get the most out of it. Here's my battery clamps, my jumper clamps. Now you can see these are made for like 500 amps. This is a nice big fat cable. I only need just a tiny bit of that. So I'm going to get the insulation off these, and I'm going to cut that copper core down to something I can actually use. Because right now it's way more than I need, but it was free.
Now you could go to the hardware store and just buy 2 little battery clamps with a little bit of wire that generally comes with them already attached. But you know, like I said, these came from the dump. They didn't cost me anything. They're good quality. They're heavy duty. I don't need all this extra wire, so I'm just going to pare this back and cut the excess off.
This is still probably even more than I need, but that's what I think I'm going to stick with. Everything else, they can just get pruned. I don't like so. There's my 2 battery clamps ready to be installed. I believe right about here is where I'm going to pass the wire through for the panel, And on the inside is where I'm going to have my output. It's where I'm going to have my outlet and where I'm going to have my charge controller. What I will do is I'll take both of these pieces of wire, tape the ends together, and then I'll try to stuff them through that hole. Something like that. Here on the inside, I'll just pull this wire through. My outlet is going to go right up underneath the sill here. First things first, let's cut and strip these wires. On our solar charge controller, these center two wires right here, that's where the solar panel needs to be tied to. Right by each of these little words, there's the positive sign and the negative sign. On this particular plug, the red is positive, the black is negative. The wires I have to work with are black and white, so you know, they're all mismatched, but so long as I know what it's doing, I suppose we're fine. That's ready to get taped up. What I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to take this wire that I pulled through the wall, everything that's left, I'm going to stuff it back through the wall, and this is going to be the line that goes to my battery. Both the positive and negative coming in from the solar panel are tied in. Now the positive and negative that are going to go out to the battery. This is where my outlet is going to go. There we go, that looks about right. Right about there's where that plug's going to go.
Now I need to take the wires that are going down to my battery and I need to hook my battery clamps to those wires. I'm going to start by making sure the ends are stripped about an inch back, and of course I've already got my battery clamps all prepped and ready to go. So let's twist them up together, get them taped up, and then we can clip them onto our battery. And once we have it all ready to go, we can put the battery anywhere we want, so long as the wires are long enough to reach there. And for this application, I think the battery is probably going to end up underneath the cabin just so it's totally out of the weather. There's one cable, a little bit of tape work, there's two cables. These guys are ready to go. Nice.
As you can see, our charging light's on.
Now everything is hooked up. Our dual outlet plug is hooked up, our solar panel's hooked up, our battery's hooked up. Let's take a reading on this battery right now to see where it sets. And it looks like we're right in the ballpark of about 12.6 volts. That's pretty good. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this battery out of the way. This is going to be the final resting place for this battery, is up underneath the cabin. That way it's not going to get rained on. I don't have to tuck it underneath the solar panel. It'll just stay down there out of the way and it'll be fine.
So the question is, what is the value of a simple solar system like this? Well, you can't do a whole lot with it. You can charge handheld devices, cell phones, iPods, if you still have one of those. I do.
You can also plug in an inverter, like the one I showed you earlier. This one is a 200 watt unit, so it'll power any AC appliance up to 200 watts power consumption.
For me, doing YouTube means running a laptop a lot of the time. Now I have a little generator I can use, and I do use it quite a bit. But as opposed to running that, with the solar system like this, it's just keeping the battery charged up enough that I can run my laptop, I can charge my cell phone. So basically I have my telephone needs taken care of, and I also have my laptop taken care of. And with the laptop, I'm using it 90% of the time for editing videos just like this. Couple that with a lamp or two and that's pretty much my electricity needs in a nutshell. Thank you guys so much for watching Bush Radical. My name's Dave Whipple. Be radical, eh? See you soon.